I think the parallel is, sorry, good afternoon those who are still here. I think the parallel is a little bit similar to Poland when I first went there in 88, 9, when I had a big telephone in a briefcase, which was a mobile phone in England, yet I had a tiny Motorola phone when I got to Warsaw in 1990. And the fact was that it was simply better, and actually some of the things that Paul said ring true here. It was simply better to do things from zero, from scratch. Sometimes it just is better to do that and let things die. Let businesses collapse and perhaps do it again. Or if not, if you have technology, and we do in some areas, wait for those businesses to fold and then pick up what assets you require once they are clean. So my view is you have a great opportunity. I think you have a hugely underutilised base of raw material in Ukraine, which is what I want to talk about. In fact, if I go quickly, I didn't know, I've got probably 7 minutes and my presentation only takes an hour. So I'll go quickly and I'll show you some of the things I think we can do in Ukraine that might be a little bit more optimistic than some of the speakers earlier today were speaking about. So we're all about forestry to energy. We've done it before and we're going to do it here in Ukraine. So this is what we think we can do as our small company. We're going to skip through lots of slides because there's too many. This gives you a breakdown. We all know what's going on in the world. We all have TV, Google. We know that coal is now the devil, and 5 years ago it was wonderful. We now know that coal usage across Europe, United States, Canada, and other places is being significantly dented by regulations, by the populations of countries. We saw demonstrations in Europe's largest coal mine over the weekend, with people in gas masks or white suits climbing on equipment, closing them down. We've seen regulations in the United Kingdom with coal and carbon taxes closing down coal fire stations. We've seen in Alberta 6 months ago the last place on earth and the only country to leave Kyoto now saying there will be no coal being burnt in Alberta for power, which every coal-fired power company I met 9 months ago in Alberta laughed me out of their office when I said that this would happen. So we're seeing coal being demonised, and largest coal company in the world, Chapter 11, Peabody. Hargreaves in the United Kingdom, share price down, I don't want to pick a number, but I believe over 70% in the last 12 months. Coal is in trouble. In Ukraine, we used to have a lot of coal. Well, we still have a lot of coal, but we used to use a lot of coal from the east of Ukraine. Clearly, and I was speaking to one of the larger traders today, about an hour and a half ago, who now is not trading coal. His business is over after 25 years as being one of the largest coal traders, because simply the problems that are there mean that that's no longer an option. My personal view on the coal situation in Ukraine is it simply would have died anyway as a business, because I believe that Ukraine is going to be pushed and forced to align itself with other Western countries. When I say Western, I've lived here for nearly on and off for 20 odd years, so I consider myself to be a little bit genetically modified. So I refer to those countries which we see on the news who are closing down coal being the more developed nations, alongside which we are one in Ukraine. The growth in investment in renewable energies has been dramatic. This is the second round of green energy investments. It kind of all started about 8-9 years ago, and it went quiet, and then suddenly the whole planet's decided that we need to have clean air and use renewable energy. So you can read the slides if you wish as I go. I won't read the obvious. This is where we see it going. It's not only where we see it going, it's where far smarter people than us see it going in the investment community, and it's immense, it's huge. We don't need all of that at Active Energy Group, we need a little bit, and Ukraine doesn't need all of that either. In fact, we're going to need far less in Ukraine than they'll need in other countries, as you'll see in a moment. This is what we're seeing, is that the investment is increasing dramatically, technologies are moving forward, and the costs of this energy are dropping dramatically. Solar is a case in point. In the United Kingdom, our government there almost bankrupted every single solar company 2.5, 3 years ago when they dropped the tariff by 50%, and ships full of solar panels that were costing 4, 5, 6 times what they cost today were halfway across the ocean and never got installed. They were being sent back and companies were going into liquidation. Now look at the costs, and the cost of energy is very low from some of these types of technologies, which even 2 years ago I would have said I wouldn't have invested in, including wind and solar. And but we don't do that, we do something different. Here's what we do. We have a holding company in the UK, we're a publicly listed company, we're not very big, we're what Paul here would describe probably as a micro-cap business. Our market cap's about $14 million. Hopefully it will not stay there for very long. If we look at some of the projects that we have divisions in those countries, they do different things. In Ukraine we focus on biomass, on a very low level of production, but we do produce, we do employ lots of people, we do give business to the logistics operators in this country, and we work with the forestries in great numbers. Over 126 forestries work with us on a daily basis. We're also the largest buyer and producer of timber products now in Ukraine, and we're the largest producer of wood chip in Europe, which is quite an achievement in just 3 years from a standing start. And I say that not to blow our own trumpet, but to say that if anyone here is thinking about investing in Ukraine and keeps being told that they shouldn't, for whatever negative reason, or that it's a bad time, or that you can't do well here, you can. And in fact, now is a really good time to be doing something, because there's not much competition. Because most people are thinking what you've been told, and that's they shouldn't do anything, but they're wrong, you should be doing things. So this is what we do. We start out with forest management. We work with forestry owners in different countries, at the moment in Canada, and we're about to start in Ukraine, to help them to improve the efficiency with which they operate, first of all. Second thing we do is we start with early stage processing of wood, and then we move, eventually when the volumes are there, through making something simple and getting the efficiencies in the forestry, we then start using all of the tree rather than leaving waste or burning it in the fields, and we turn it into a fuel. Our next step, and this is, I'm going to give you something interesting to think about to answer the question again that was given at the beginning, is power stations in Ukraine were never interested in biomass. The reason was the same owners owned the biomass as owned the coal. If you own the coal and you own a coal-fired power plant that didn't cost you very much, perhaps you didn't build from scratch because it was there in the 60s or the 70s, why on earth would you invest hundreds of millions of dollars to turn it into something cleaner? You wouldn't, especially if you were being subsidised heavily for coal. That was your coal in the first place. What's happened now is that the coal is now largely unavailable, lots of imports are coming in, the plants are getting very old, and the profits being generated from lower priced electricity mean that it's almost impossible for the owner of these coal plants to actually reinvest. What our fuel does is it means that we can actually put biomass directly into a coal-fired power plant. No one else can do it at 100%. We reliably do it over 50% in a number of locations, including Utah in the United States at the moment. What does that mean? It means that if these power plants close in different countries, and they are closing, I saw 2 last week in Italy, in fact 3 days ago, it means we are the only company that could technically come and take them over and start them again completely cleanly as a renewable power plant without rebuilding them, without having to build from scratch, and without having to invest in a retrofit. So this puts us in a very powerful position. What does that mean for Ukraine? It means, and I'll skip these, this is, by the way, how we built our business in Ukraine in the last 3 years, and we're saying that it can be done. I'm going fast because I think I've got about 3 minutes. We now produce this year around just over 500,000 tonnes of wood chip. We don't use good quality wood, we use the stuff that nobody else wants, and we're about to start using even the pure waste. So this is the kind of growth you can do, you can see in Ukraine if you work hard. Let me go through. This group here are an example of what I'd like to see happening in Ukraine. These people are not Ukrainian. They are actually indigenous people. They're from a group called the Métis, and they have settlements in Alberta. They own 1.5 million hectares of land. About 500,000 of that is forestry. They have no government support, they have 90% unemployment, they have no schooling or education, or didn't have. They have no medical care to any great degree on their own settlements and have to travel a day in each direction to get them to a doctor, for example. That's no longer the case. We spent 7 years fighting with them to get them in a position where forestry, which they own, can be used to produce an environmentally friendly fuel to put into Alberta power stations that currently burn coal. It suits their lifestyle, it suits their culture, and it's wonderful for Alberta as well as for the Métis, who were marginalised but are now, because of this, being invited into more closely into the community. That gives you an idea of how it works. I'm going to do one more slide and then stop. There's the numbers in Alberta with our Métis partners. Now I'm going to show you the Ukrainian example. And by the way, my personal belief and my financistów тоже думаю that in Ukraine you have 35 to 50 billion dollars of assets that are unrealized, that we know how to monetize, because the numbers here are not speculative. We have received, we have completed due diligence, all but, I'm going to get off this stage in about 25 minutes to go for a call with our bankers, for up to $300 million of investment secured on that forest. And it's only 458,000 hectares. Ukraine has in excess of 9 million. So this is what we are planning in Ukraine at the moment. We hope to achieve this year between 350 and 900,000 hectares in a managed partnership in some form of, I won't go into details because I'll be giving the game away, and it costs a lot of money to restructure legal structures in Ukraine to be able to do this. Hectares of forestry, which we can work with those forestries, invest in those forestries, and generate a replacement for coal for Ukraine. And we expect probably nearer the $500 million level of investment to be secured against that brand new, not restructured business in Ukraine, and to employ probably upwards of 2,500 people by 2018. So this is what we do. We take wood, we turn it into this. There's the details of it. It's exactly the same as coal, but better in some areas. It's exactly the same energy. It burns better. It's competitive on price. It's low in sulfur. It does all the things that you want a fuel to do, but it can go in a coal plant. I think that's the end of where I'm at. But yeah, there's all these. I'll flip through them. Oh, there's some other examples, but we won't talk about those. So the bottom line is that we are very optimistic about Ukraine for all kinds of reasons. We always have been. For which reason you should take everything I've just said with a pinch of salt, because clearly I'm overly optimistic. But we've done very well in Ukraine over the years, and we think that Ukraine is a great place to do business for those people who are willing to work hard and understand and to spend their time here, a lot of time. And I think renewables now is a great time to be doing business.